Duke, North Carolina. Will throw UConn in since they won the national championship. They're the defending
they've
champs.
won enough.
So, of those schools, they're all in the top 25, and they've won 13 of the last 23 national championships. And then if you want to throw in Jay Wright and Villanova, that's two more championships.
Throw them in too.
So I'm not buying it, because guess what? The best players are still going to those schools. I get it. You might have a disgruntled player that transfers out, but these programs also get players that transfer in. People still want to be part of that legacy, part of the program. I'm not buying it at all. And UConn right now is the favorite to win the national championship, so I disagree with Jay Wright on this one.
Frank, but I think there's context to this. And I've talked to Jay about this before. I agree with him. Because while you have those schools each can still pop up and threaten to win a national championship or win, we've seen that, with UConn and Villanova. We've seen that. In terms of all of them dominating the conversation and landscape and recruiting, no, they're not. They're not going to do that. And they have very down years now, which wasn't the case before. So I'm not saying all those programs are going to go away. I'm not saying the Blue Bloods are going to be extinct, and I don't think Jay Wright's suggesting that either. I know he's not. But, Frank, players now, kids now, they want to transfer out of their homeroom. If it didn't go well 2 days in a row in math class, they want to go to the portal, and they want to get to so the culture now just says bail. Bail on whatever it is, because you can get a better deal across the street. The grass is always greener. That's where we are in these times, and recruits. And so I think that Jay's on to something here. And by the way, this particular tournament is going to tell us that. Frank, is why the product is so not enticing. Women's basketball is so much more exciting and so much more attractive and appealing because people stay for 4 years. I know they got transfer portal too, but they don't bail every single day like the men do because they all think they're going to the league, even though they're not. Yeah. And everybody can play a little bit. They all can play. That wasn't the case 30 years ago.
But I get it. We get Butler going to the back-to-back national championship games. They lost both of them. We've seen VCU, George Mason in the Final Four over the last 20 years. Just last season, you had San Diego State make it, Florida Atlantic, Miami, but it was still UConn winning. Here's my only thing, Mike. The top recruits still want to be associated with the big programs. So Cooper Flagg, who's the number one recruit in the country, he had it down to UConn and Duke. And what happens? All the big-name, alums from Duke that are all in the NBA are calling the kid up. He goes there. So those schools are still going to get the players. I know it's hard to win with a lot of one-and-dones, but all these coaches would still rather take the talent, get the team together in August, and make a run for it in March and then into April.
I'll give you that. I'll grant you that.
All right, let's move to baseball, where the White Sox sent ace Dylan Cease to the Padres for a couple of prospects. Cease joins a San Diego staff that already includes Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove. After last season's flameout, Padres GM A.J. Preller said see ya to a bunch of stars. That includes Blake Snell and Juan Soto. But Preller says the Padres have a chance to win. Is he right that his squad can contend, Mike?
I mean, they may be able to contend. We'll see. But it's not because they got Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is a nice pitcher. He's a guy. He's a nice pitcher. 2 years ago, I think he was runner-up for Cy Young. But then last year, he was like 7-9 with a 4.58 ERA. And come on now, let's not confuse him with Sandy Koufax. So let's not get crazy, which, of course, every deal now requires people to get nuts and make stupid proclamations. Dylan Cease could even have a bounce-back year. I mean, let's say he's a 12-7 guy as a starter for that staff. That doesn't vault them past necessarily the Dodgers or even Arizona in their own division or who might pop up. So let's not get crazy. The White Sox had plenty of underachieving, and Cease was part of that too.
All right, to your point, the numbers, 14-8, 2.20 ERA the year that he finished second in the Cy Young. Last year he has a down year. But remember, you go to San Diego, they got a better lineup. They field, they catch, they throw the ball better than the White Sox do. And here's the thing about the Padres to keep in mind. Last season, 9-23 in one-run games. They were 2-12 in extra inning games. That's just being a bit unlucky, and I think they made the right move here. You get rid of Blake Snell, you need pitching, and when you're contending with the Diamondbacks, think about what they did last season, and then the Dodgers are always the Dodgers. It's not just about having a big lineup. They shed over $100 million off that payroll. I mean, think about the money that they spent, Mike, and you have an expanded postseason. and they didn't even make the playoffs last year. So, they do it up in the Bronx all the time. They think we're going to out-hit everybody all year long. It's not about that all the time. You need pitching, and I think it's worth taking a chance on Dylan Cease.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not worth taking the chance, Frank. I'm just saying let's not get carried away and make them a favorite to make the playoffs because I got Dylan Cease. Expanded playoffs, they couldn't make it last year with an $800 million payroll.
Yeah, but I do think he'll help. All right, let's stick with baseball. And the state of starting pitching just isn't what it used to be. While Justin Verlander needs 43 wins to reach the magic number of 300, Clayton Kershaw may be the last pitcher to reach even 200. As the warmonger points out on Twitter, the active leader in wins for players under 30 is Jose Barrios with just 83. Garrett Cole does have 145, but he's 33 years old, and right now he's injured. Mike, is it reasonable to wonder if the days of 200-game winners are gone?
Yes. Starting pitching is extinct. I mean, it's gone. It's done the way I knew it, the way some of us of a certain age grew up with it. And one of the things I like, Theo Epstein, we had as a guest last year more than once, and he talked about starting pitching. In addition to all the things that Theo helped install to get pace of game, one of the things he also wanted to see, and he gave voice to this, was starting pitching. Like, let it matter.
Yeah.
Bullpen days in the postseason, that's garbage. And so, I grew up with my hero being Ferguson Jenkins. You now, forget 300, forget 200. You can't even get 5 complete games out of a guy in a season when starting pitchers used to give you maybe 30 plus the top pitchers. So I hate it, Frank. I hate that baseball's done this.
Think about this, Mike. The last 300-game winner was Randy Johnson, and he did that back in 2009. Essentially, a whole generation of pitchers have come and gone, and nobody's gotten to 300. Now we're just worried about 200. And think about this. Madison Bumgarner, who was an all-time legendary postseason pitcher, only has 134. Aaron Nola is less than 100. Jacob deGrom, who was a dominant pitcher for a few years, is in the 80s in terms of wins. But you're 100% right. The pitchers don't even pitch enough innings anymore. But I also think, a lot of this falls on, the front office, the pitching coaches. They talk so much now. It's not even about the pitch count. It's about spin rate. They have these guys throwing the ball so hard that's why they're keeping them out and only pitching them 3, 4, 5 innings. It's going to be hard to do. 200 will be that number. But you talk about being of a certain age. I'm a lot closer to you than you think. It was 500 home runs, 3,000 hits, and then 300 wins. We're probably not going to see – it'll probably happen, but it's not going to be very often we see a guy even get to 200. It's a little hard to believe.
Get to 200. Unbelievable. The people that you name, they're not even close. To me, I don't know. It's part of baseball's problem. Most people will tell you they don't have one. I'm not agreeing with that. And now to the NFL's ongoing search for a solution to the onside kickoff. Safety measures in recent years have all but eliminated successful onside kicks. This has led to proposals to replace the onside kick attempt with a 4th and 15 play from one's own 20. But those proposals have all stalled, and now in an effort to win more votes, the Eagles are proposing a 4th and 20 play that a team can use up to twice per game, only when trailing. Frank, could you see this wrinkle getting votes, getting support?
We know that they basically got rid of the onside kick, as you mentioned, because of it's essentially a safety issue. So it's basically gone at this point. In fact, only 3% of them were successful last season. But you know what was successful? 14% of plays 4th to 15 and longer worked. So guess what? And I'll give you an example. And I know you're not going to like this because it's the NFL and it's a gimmick and the whole thing. But come on, Mike.
It is.
Go to the NFC Championship game just a couple of months ago. When Detroit got the ball back, they had to kick off an onside kick. There was no chance it was going to be recovered. Wouldn't it have been a little bit more exciting if they had a chance on a 4th and 20 to give themselves a chance to win the game? That's more exciting than an onside kick. That, Mike, is never going to work. I actually like what the Eagles are proposing here.
Frank, I understand the need to try to come to something to inject more excitement late in the games. If you're down, you want people still watching. You want teams to figure they have a chance. But Frank, are you a shootout guy? Do you like PKs is what they're called internationally?
No.
In America, they've been called shootout. You hate that, right?
Yep. Yeah.
This is what that is, Frank. It's the NFL's gimmick. It's the NFL's form of that. Let's inject some excitement we don't have because we got rid of something else. I'm not going to sit here and say you shouldn't try to have a safer game and eliminate concussions, and that's why the onside kickers go. I get it, but don't give me this garbage.
What's your solution? What would you do?
I don't know. I don't know, but this is artificial, random garbage. And let's call it what it is. Come on now. Go back to the drawing board.
It would have made the
Smarter
NFC Championship game even better.
Than me. We're taking a break. Coming up, Daniel Gafford is creeping up on one of Wilt's records. What's the word for that?
And how best to describe Domantas Sabonis' success against Anthony Davis.
That was a TKO right there. I was watching that last night. Yep. I mean, to go that long with a streak with not missing, even if you're just taking 3-foot shots. And that's what he's doing. He's taking 3-foot shots. He's dunking the ball. He's getting lob passes. He's getting set up. And Gafford, the Bulls never should have let Gafford go. Gafford has some, there's an upside there. Now, the word, however, is wiltish. And any form of that you can have. You can have wilt-like, wilt-autonomous, anything with wilt. Because Wilt has the record. Gafford's within 3 of it. Now, Wilt did go 11 for 11 and 18 for 18 in successive games. And the 11 for 11 came against Zelmo Beatty, among others. So, look, there's Wilt, there's Gretzky, there's Ruth. That's the list in terms of records in the various sports. Everybody else can take a step back. And if you want to add Jim Brown, but it wasn't numbers to Jim Brown in pro football, but wiltish is the word.
You sound like Sonny Hill talking about Wilt Chamberlain. I'm going to go with assisted living. Last night he was 5 for 5. Kyrie and Luka Doncic assisted on all those baskets. By the way, 17 of the 33, Mike, are dunks. Not everyone has to shoot a three-pointer. So give Daniel Gafford credit for understanding his role and his strength. He went 7 for 7, 5 for 5, 7 for 7, 9 for 9, and now he just went 5 for 5. One other thing about Wilt Chamberlain. The year that he made the 35 straight, in January, he had 32 straight. So, I mean,
listen,
it's ridiculous what
Wilt,
this guy did.
Gretzky, Ruth. Everybody else bow your head. That's the deal. I don't want to hear about your analytics and your I don't want to hear any of that. Those 3 guys, they're the guys. They are record book in America, North America. What's next?
It's blank that Domantas Sabonis is now 10-0 against Anthony Davis.
Man, Frank, did you watch any of that last night?
Yeah.
I mean, look, the Lakers are in a position, and so is Sacramento. They're not going to play each other in a first round. They could face somebody advanced. They could play each other. But Sabonis just has it. It's kryptonite. I mean, Anthony Davis, who can be, look, Anthony has been great all year. He really has been.
Yeah.
He's been durable. He's been out there. He's been playing. He and LeBron have been tag teaming and keeping them afloat, even though they're in the play-in right now. But it's still kryptonite. Sabonis, who leads the league in triple-doubles, I think he also leads in double-doubles. He's just got it going when he gets Anthony Davis. He goes right at him. And he has a way of attacking Anthony Davis, which seems to confound Anthony Davis in a way that nobody else can replicate. So give Sabonis some credit, but he's got the kryptonite for AD.
Yeah, maybe Sabonis should have been an all-star. I'm going to go with on brand. Think about this, Mike. 0-10 against Sabonis, 1-7 against Embiid, and he's lost his last 7 games against Nikola Jokic. Now, to be fair to Anthony Davis, LeBron is on his team. He does have some other teammates that have to take some of that responsibility. But how is that possible? That he's gone that many, he's got
2 of those guys are
win
MVPs, keep in mind.
in 24 games against these guys. And here's the thing about Anthony Davis. He's played 63 games this year, Mike. That's the most he's played since his last 2 years in New Orleans when he played 75. He had the game on Sunday where he went for 27 and 25 against Minnesota. So he's put up really big numbers. But it's a little hard to believe that he's getting dominated like that by Sabonis, Embiid, and, of course, Jokic.
Yeah, I don't think the Lakers really would want to see Sacramento in a playoff series, even though they tell you something else. That's the final word. Let's take one last break, but still to come. An insane buzzer beater for Stephen F. Austin.
And potentially bad news for Lionel Messi and fans of DC United as well.
I think I know what's coming.
I know you're in one of those luxury suites tomorrow or this weekend. Not going to be good.
I'm in a studio this week. Time to get happy, people. Happy 27th birthday, Simone Biles, the most decorated gymnast in history, including 4 golds at the Olympics, 6 all-around world championships, and 8 United States all-around crowns. Biles famously battled the twisties at the Tokyo Games, then took a 2-year break to work on her mental health. She's now competing again and is in championship form apparently ahead of this summer's Paris Games. Small note for those of us from Chicago, her husband, NFL safety Jonathan Owens, just left the Cheeseheads for the Bears. With Biles tweeting, quote, "I'm so excited about not having a connecting flight to go and see my husband," close quote.
I knew you were going to get the Bears in there. This is going to be a big summer for Simone Biles. You know, Mike, the last time she competed at the Olympics, 2016 in Rio, 4 gold medals and a bronze medal as well. We'll see how she does in Paris.
Big summer coming indeed. Maybe a big fall and winter too, Frank.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary to St. Joseph's. On this day 43 years ago, John Smith's layup at the buzzer beat top-ranked DePaul in DePaul's first game of the NCAA tournament. This was a huge upset. DePaul was led by future NBA stars Mark Aguirre and Terry Cummings and had been the favorite to win the whole thing. Last night, DePaul almost pulled off a huge upset of its own in the Big East tournament. The Blue Demons, who went 0-20 in the Big East this season, led Villanova by 2 with 10 seconds left before it all fell apart. Reports today have DePaul hiring former Ohio State head coach Chris Holtmann.
All right, so think about this. On that same day St. Joe's beats DePaul, Orlando Blackman and Kansas State, they knock off number 2 Oregon State on a last-second shot. And then remember the famous U.S. Reed 40-foot heave for Arkansas to beat Louisville. U.S. Reed didn't get the Sports Illustrated cover. Orlando Blackman ended up on the cover.
It's a day that really helped make March Madness. It put the madness in March. It's one of the historic landmark days of DePaul losing. That depressed us more than the Bulls losing back then because they were bigger than the Bulls in Chicago. Happy trails to Abilene Christian with their WAC tournament game against Stephen F. Austin tied at 57 late. The Wildcats had a chance to win, but Arian Simmons got his shot blocked by Jaleel Beaubrun. Krishan Christmas, I love that name, then received the outlet pass and shot it up to A.J. Kajus, who basically redirected the thing into the hoop for a game-winning 3 at the buzzer. It's the 3rd time this season Abilene Christian fell victim to a buzzer beat.
Kajus is on fire. So last week we did the story about Anthony Edwards finishing a game with a block. This is a block that leads to an incredible shot at the buzzer. But remember, Stephen F. Austin, it was 5 years ago, they went down to Cameron Indoor Stadium and won a game against Duke on a last-second shot. So they have a habit of doing stuff like this.
Well, these are the kind of games that, again, put the madness into March. We need more of them. One omission.
You're right.
The Commanders are sending Sam Howell, a 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick to the Seahawks for a 3rd and a 5th. You know what that means, Frank?
Is that a Justin Fields? Maybe?
Well, they got to pick a quarterback. They got the 2nd pick.
Yeah, they're picking a quarterback.
We're running out of show.
That's right.
Let's go to the big finish. Lionel Messi is likely to miss Saturday's game against D.C. United in D.C. with a right leg injury. Your thoughts?
It stinks for the people in D.C. because Messi last night had a goal and an assist as Miami beat Nashville in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I went through the same thing in New York over the summer. He did play the last 30 minutes. Didn't start the game, however. The Lions extended head coach Dan Campbell and GM Brad Holmes through 2027. Does that make sense?
Detroit to a Super Bowl, its first one ever. Yeah, lots of sense. Mandatory. Joe Flacco will reportedly join the Colts on a 1-year deal. Is that a good fit?
No, I think it is. He's going to back up Anthony Richardson. So Flacco had a terrible playoff game against Houston, but he really had a good season.
That's right. The Lions
he got
are still
them
looking
into
for
the
a Super Bowl. Went to the NFC title game, not the Super Bowl.
All right. The Cavs snapped the Pelicans' 4-game winning streak. Are you surprised?
Kind of. They were sort of mini roll, but Donovan Mitchell back. Maybe I shouldn't be too surprised. Last one, Suns, Celtics tonight. Who you got?
Yeah. Celtics beat them last week. First game after a long road trip. Porzingis is out. You don't know about Jaylen Brown? Boston will still win. I know Phoenix needs the game. All right, we're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
I'm Mike Wilbon. We are bumped by college basketball tomorrow, but back on Monday with Bracket Madness, knuckleheads. How did that put the Lions in the Super Bowl? Still one step away. Still haven't played in one. Here's sports.
Yeah, on site.
All right, so according to ESPN Bet, Nikola Jokic remains the odds-on favorite to win his 3rd MVP award. Luka Doncic, despite his recent run of play, remains 3rd behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Giannis, Jason Tatum, only other players with shorter than 50-1 odds. It was a special day when we get friend of the program, PTI's Michael Wilbon, to join the show. All right, Mike, got about 20 games left, right, in the NBA season right now. How would you handicap the MVP race right now?
Ooh, it is a sprint, L, and it's sort of cool when you get to this point. And I do have a vote, and so every day I'm poring over, reviews of performance. And listen, it's hard not to have Joker at the top of it. It's hard not to have Nikola Jokic there again, given that Denver has just crept right back up to the top of the Western Conference, and he's been fabulous in doing so. I mean, you can't look at the defending champs and not start every conversation with him. So right now, if I had to fill out a ballot tonight, he'd be one. And then we get into, for me, all year long, I've been beating the drum for Anthony Edwards. And it's only lately, for some reason, that people other than me seem to notice that Anthony Edwards is not just valuable, he's dynamic. He has all the goods that an MVP should have. The game that he changed, that he won with that blocked shot, he crashes to the floor, L, and the very next night, he doesn't go load management. He doesn't say, I'm hurt, and I talked to him, and I said, you crashed to the floor. And he said, I'm young, I'm playing. And he had a smile on his face, and there's a certain dynamic nature to who he is that he's a wow. And so he and SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they are probably 2 and 3, even ahead of Luka Doncic and his string of triple-doubles. So that's 4 people. Jason Tatum may round out my top 5 at that point. But that's the way I'm looking at it today. I know it could change. But Joker, man, it's going to be hard to unseat him.
Yeah, well, Joker, it feels like he's made dominance sort of boring, so we sort of look and seek out other MVP candidates. I'm with you on AE, though. I got to be honest, that man could win any MVP for sound bites because he is on it. You mentioned Jason Tatum. Let's talk about the Celtics. I think they're the best record in the NBA. You know that. And they host the Suns tonight, who are 14-9 big win, the trio of KD, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal all play. But, of course, the problem, Mike, is they've only played 2 times together since the All-Star break. So what is your assessment of this Suns team right now that sits at 7 in the West?
7 in the West. We're at the point now with, teams having played 60 or more games where, it's not a sample size anymore. You are who you've proven to be over these months since Halloween when the season started, essentially. And so my problem with the Suns, L, is not with any of the 3 dynamic stars they have. It just isn't. Devin Booker, when he's out there, has been all league level. Kevin Durant has been better than that. He's been one of the, you could say, top 5 or 6 or 7 players in the league. And Bradley Beal is coming along, and he seems to fit comfortably with them. But they are missing an ingredient. The Suns are dead last in fourth quarter performance. Whether it's point differential, whether it's fourth quarter efficiency, last. And it speaks to the lack of a quarterback, of an organizer. Yeah, we call him a point guard, a primary playmaker. It's not fair to ask Kevin Durant to do that. Kevin Durant has been playing alongside Russell Westbrook and then Steph Curry and even Kyrie Irving his whole professional career. That's not his job. That's not what he is greatest at, and he is great, an all-time great. Devin Booker is great, but he played alongside when he got to the finals. Who was there? Chris Paul. Running that show, being the quarterback, being the primary playmaker. And Bradley Beal had John Wall with his greatest success in Washington when they had a great 7-game series against the Celtics. John Wall was that person. The Suns don't have it. And so people can talk about analytics all they want. They can talk about what people should be able to do, and you should be able to mix and match. No, the Suns are missing that ingredient. And if you can't be better than dead last in the fourth quarter, I don't know how you seriously contend in the West as loaded as it is.
Yeah, and you know what, Mike? It's not just that they're dead last. They're minus 200 in the fourth quarter, and the next closest person to them is the Heat at minus 94. They're by far and away the worst at it. You mentioned the absolute worst. You mentioned the Celtics, who, of course, in the midst of their best 65-game stretch since they won it all back in 07-08. In your mind, for Jason Tatum and co., is it championship or bust?
Probably, L, and I'm reluctant even now to go there, but part of this is just the dynamics of today's NBA, any league really. You're going to have 2 guys making $600 million with Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And how long can you sort of sustain that? And what about the other players, Eric White? What about the other players on that roster when they come up for salary discussion? How long can you sustain that? How sustainable is it? And so the Celtics, they've had enough cracks at this now. I mean, what has it been, like 5 trips to at least the conference finals? And 4 of those times with these guys together, Tatum and Brown. They got to the finals once, obviously, losing to Golden State. It does seem that way. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they've got to break up the Celtics if they don't win. But how long do you keep them together at those prices? And is there disappointment that can't be pushed out of that locker room if they lose again? Particularly, if they don't get to the finals. There's nobody in the East right now that should challenge the Celtics. I know that the Bucks are a recent champion. The Bucks have done something with Giannis, that the Celtics haven't done. The Bucks actually closed. But I don't know that the Bucks look like that this year. There's still some ups and downs with them trying to put everything together, even with the great Dame Lillard on that roster. The Celtics have to win the East, and then we start talking about what their postseason looks like.
Well, they can start tonight because they could become the first Eastern Conference team to clinch a playoff berth if they beat the aforementioned Suns. Mike Wilbon joining us here on SportsCenter. Always appreciate your insight, friend.
Thanks, Elle, for having me.